I never thought I'd see something this vile in my own neighborhood. Paintballs, bright splashes of neon yellow and red, were dripping down my service dog's fur while he whimpered, his body trembling. And the worst part, a smug little teenager stood across the street, paintball gun still raised, laughing. My chest burned. My fists clenched. My heart raced so fast I could hear it in my ears. Thump, thump, thump. What the hell is wrong with you? I shouted, my voice cracking through the cool evening air. The brat just shrugged, muttering something about just a dog. Just a dog. My dog isn't just a pet. He's my lifeline, my partner, my battle buddy after years of service overseas. And that's when she appeared. Karen. Blonde bob. Oversized sunglasses despite the sun being nearly down and that familiar scowl carved deep into her face. Her flip-flops slapped against the sidewalk like some twisted drumbeat as she stormed toward me. "Excuse me," she snapped, hands on hips. "Are you seriously yelling at my son right now?" I could hardly breathe. I looked down at Duke, my shepherd mix, still shaking, paint dripping from his fur like cruel graffiti on a monument. I knelt to comfort him, my hands shaking. "He shot my dog. With paintballs." Karen gasped, her voice dripping with fake shock. "That's absurd. My son would never do something like that. You must be confused." Confused. I stared at her, dumbfounded. The paintball gun was literally in her brat's hands. "Are you blind? Or just lying to my face?" The kid snorted, hiding a grin, while Karen launched into a tirade about how veterans think they own the neighborhood and how dogs should be kept inside if they can't handle a little fun. Her words sliced through me, sharper than any insult I'd ever taken from an enemy abroad. My neighbors started peeking from their porches, drawn by the shouting. A couple whispered, "Oh my God." Another shook his head, muttering, "Typical Karen." And me, I was fighting back the urge to explode. I took a deep breath. "Steady. Soldier. Steady. Look at the paint. Look at his fur. That's proof." Karen crossed her arms, tossing her head back. "Paint could have come from anywhere. Maybe your dog rolled in something. You can't pin this on my son." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her. But instead, I pulled out my phone. My fingers trembled as I opened the camera roll, scrolling to the feed from my front porch security camera. Because I'd installed a new one last week. Call it paranoia. Call it preparation. But God bless that instinct. "Really?" I said, forcing calm into my voice. "You sure you want to stick with that story?" Karen smirked. "Try me." So I did. I hit play. And there it was on screen, crystal clear. Her brat raising the paintball gun. The pop 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 sound echoing. Duke yelping, stumbling back, then curling up on the porch in terror. The video captured it all. The laughter, the malice, the undeniable truth. Gasps rippled through the little crowd that had gathered. One of the neighbors actually muttered, "She's screwed." Karen's face went pale for half a second. Just a flicker. But she doubled down, her voice rising in pitch. That's doctored. People edit videos all the time these days. AI or whatever. You think the police are gonna believe that junk?" I felt my jaw tighten. Her son. He was chuckling, shoulders shaking, as if this were the funniest thing in the world. My dog whimpered again, pressing against my leg, his trust in people shredded by a kid who thought cruelty was entertainment. And then it hit me. If Karen wanted to deny, let her deny. But the proof wasn't just in my phone. The paintball welts on Duke's fur. The gun still in her son's hand. The fresh paint splatters on my porch. It was all undeniable. I dialed 911. "Oh, give me a break." Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "You're really calling the cops over a paintball? Pathetic. Pathetic." My voice dropped low. steady. The way it used to when I was commanding younger soldiers. Lady, you just messed with the wrong veteran. Her smirk faltered. Just a bit. Minutes later, the flashing red and blue lights washed over the street, bathing Karen's perfect little suburban kingdom in judgment. The officers stepped out. One male, one female, and the crowd hushed. You could feel the tension, like the air itself was holding its breath. Karen put on her best act immediately, her voice sugary sweet. Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man is harassing me and my child. He's unstable, screaming at us, accusing my boy of things he didn't do. I almost laughed. Almost. But instead, I let her dig her own grave. The officer turned to me. Sir, can you explain what happened? My throat tightened, but I stood tall. Yes, sir. My service dog was shot with paintballs by that boy. I have physical evidence and I have video proof. Karen gasped, clutching her pearls like some dime store actress. He's making this up. You can't seriously. I raised my phone, thumb hovering over play. Want to see for yourselves. The officers exchanged a look, then nodded. I played the video again, the sound of the paintball gun firing echoing through the quiet street. Duke's yelp sliced through the silence. The officer's jaw tightened. The female officer's eyes narrowed at the brat, whose grin was finally slipping. Karen flailed. It's fake. It has to be fake. The male officer turned, pointing at the paintball gun still clutched in the boy's hand. Son, is that your marker? The kid mumbled something, his voice cracking, eyes darting. The officer snapped sharper. Answer the question. Yes, he whispered. And just like that, Karen's house of lies collapsed. The neighbors couldn't hold back anymore. One muttered, about time. Another whispered, karma. Karen tried to shield her son, her words spilling out in a frantic mess. He didn't mean it. Boys will be boys. That dog probably scared him. You can't press charges over paint. But the officer cut her off cold. Ma'am, intentionally harming a service animal is a criminal offense. You're looking at charges. Her jaw dropped. Criminal offense. Over a dog. My voice cracked then, thick with rage and grief. Not just a dog. My partner. My family. The one who helps me sleep through nightmares you'll never understand. The crowd fell silent again. Even Karen didn't have a comeback. For a moment, just a sliver of a moment, I thought maybe she'd finally get it. But no. Her face twisted and she hissed. This is harassment. We'll sue you all for defamation. That's when the female officer stepped forward, her voice cutting like a blade. Ma'am, you can save that for the judge. Right now, you and your son need to come with us. The sound. God, I'll never forget it. The snap of the cuffs closing around Karen's wrists. Her shriek echoed across the street. Sharp, shrill, desperate. You can't do this to me. I'm a homeowner association member. I know my rights. Her brat started crying then, all his cockiness gone. And me, I just stood there, hand resting gently on Duke's head, whispering, it's okay, buddy. Justice is here. The police led them to the car, Karen thrashing, screaming about lawsuits, conspiracies, fake videos, neighbors recorded with their phones, some even laughing under their breath. The once proud queen of the cul-de-sac was now nothing more than a headline waiting to happen. As the cruiser pulled away, the night air felt different, lighter, almost free. Duke leaned into me, licking the paint from his fur as if to comfort me this time. I let out a long, shaky sigh. What a day. What a damn day. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about me or my dog. It was about everyone Karen had ever tried to bully. Everyone she thought she could steamroll with lies and entitlement. Tonight, she finally met her wall. And oh, How bitter that ending tasted. For her. Thanks for sticking through this story with me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more real stories where justice finally shuts down the Karens of the world. I knew something was off the second I saw them standing near the event gates with clipboards and smug little smirks. Park safety inspection. They announced, though no one had called one. 10 minutes later, our charity event for the kids was in chaos. Parents being shooed away, and the fire department pulling up with flashing lights because apparently someone reported a dangerous gas leak. You ever feel your blood boil so fast you swear you can hear it? That was me, standing there holding a tray of cupcakes I'd baked for the fundraiser, watching the Karen sisters Donna and Marie pretend they were some kind of public heroes. Only problem? They weren't heroes. They were the reason the whole thing was shutting down. Donna's hair was sprayed into this perfect, stiff helmet, and Marie's oversized sunglasses reflected every bit of the panic they'd caused. People were whispering, "Is it real? Should we leave?" While kids clung to their parents, their faces crumpling with disappointment. I overheard Marie telling someone, "Oh, we had to step in that old gas line under the pavilion is dangerous. We smelled it earlier." I wanted to scream, because I'd been there since 6 in the morning helping set up tables, and I'd walked past that same pavilion at least a dozen times. No smell, no danger, no leak. The truth? They just hated that the HOA-approved park was being used for something they didn't control. Sigh. It was classic Karen politics. They tried to block the event in the HOA meeting 2 months ago, claiming liability concerns code for, "We don't want other people deciding what happens here." The vote didn't go their way, so they'd clearly decided to take matters into their own manicured hands. But here's the kicker: the fire captain took one deep breath near the so-called leak zone, then frowned. "I'm not getting anything," he said, waving his gas detector around. The thing didn't even twitch. That should have been the end of it, except one of the firefighters glanced over at the fence line and spotted something that made my jaw drop. There, half hidden behind the shrubbery, was a small portable propane cylinder, like the kind you'd hook up to a camping stove with the nozzle slightly open. I swear you could hear the snap of the Karen's confidence cracking. Donna tried to act shocked. "Oh my goodness, where did that come from?" But the firefighter wasn't buying it. "Well," he said slowly, "it's on the HOA property side, and the chain lock's still on the gate. Who's got the key?" You could almost see the color drain from Marie's face. The captain ordered everyone out of the immediate area just in case, and that's when the hazmat team rolled up. Big yellow suits, heavy boots clomping, radios crackling. Kids were wide-eyed, parents were muttering under their breath, and I just stood there, biting my tongue so hard it hurt, because in my head, I already knew how this was going to go. Sure enough, once they checked the cylinder and the lock records, it was obvious the leak was staged, and the only ones with access to that locked gate without calling maintenance. Yep, the Karen sisters, thanks to their positions on the HOA grounds committee. But oh, it got better. While hazmat was still there, a city safety officer walked up with a clipboard and a look that could cut glass. "We've also received a tip that a forged inspection form was submitted to the HOA board last night, claiming the pavilion failed a safety check." I blinked. Forged? Turns out, someone had emailed the HOA president a gas line hazard report on official-looking city letterhead, except the safety officer whose name was on it was standing right there, in front of us, saying, "I didn't write this, and this isn't even our format." Donna stammered, "Well, maybe it was just a misunderstanding," but Marie shot her a look like, "Shut up before you make it worse." Too late. The officer said flatly, "Filing a falsified safety report is a criminal offense. You might want to call your lawyer." Oh, that was my favorite moment of the day. The Karens were suddenly very quiet, hanging back as the hazmat team packed up and the fire trucks pulled away. Parents started drifting back to the playground, shaking their heads. The kids didn't get their big event. The bouncy houses were already deflating. The food trucks had rolled out, but the mood shifted when someone whispered, "They're in trouble." And trouble was putting it lightly. By Monday morning, word had spread like wildfire. The HOA president called an emergency meeting not to protect the community, like Donna liked to say, but to deal with legal liabilities arising from fraudulent actions by committee members. I went, of course. Couldn't miss it. Donna tried her usual confident act, walking in with a big tote bag like she was ready to run the show. But the second the city attorney laid a manila folder in front of her, she deflated. Inside were photos of the propane tank in place, copies of the forged email, and get the security camera stills from a neighbor's Ring camera that showed the two of them carrying something behind the fence at 5:42 that morning. The room went silent except for the faint click of someone's pen. The attorney explained the fines. $22,000 from Hazmat for false hazardous materials deployment, plus potential restitution for the event costs. The HOA's insurance wouldn't cover a dime because it was an intentional act. And if they didn't pay, well, lawsuit city. Donna muttered. We were just trying to keep people safe. Couldn't help it. I laughed. Out loud. Oh yeah? Is that why you brought a propane tank from your own garage? Gasped. A couple of muffled chuckles from the back row. Marie snapped. You don't know what you're talking about. But her voice was shaking. Actually, the attorney said, sliding another photo across the table. We do. This tank's serial number matches a purchase from your HomePro account last year. You could have heard a pin drop. And here's the secondary twist while everyone was fixated on the gas leak drama. Another resident stood up and said, by the way, the Karens also billed the HOA for emergency safety signage last month, but the invoice number belongs to a landscaping company in Ohio. Fraud on top of fraud. The Karens both went pale. The HOA meeting ended with more than just a vote. It ended with a full-on motion to remove Donna and Marie from every committee they'd ever sat on. The president didn't even bother to hide his relief when it passed unanimously. No more grounds inspections. No more safety walkthroughs. No more HOA micromanagement disguised as civic duty. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, they were served. Right there, in front of the whole block. The process server stepped out of his car, envelopes in hand, and asked, Donna and Marie Haskins? When they hesitated, he read their names louder, like it was a bad reality TV reveal. They had no choice but to take the thick, crinkling packets. It was the lawsuit, the city, the hazmat department, and the HOA collectively demanding damages. $22,000 in fines, plus another $12,000 in restitution for the ruined charity event. Add in legal fees, and they were staring down a financial crater they couldn't possibly fill without selling their precious golf cart and maybe even their matching patio furniture sets. I wish I could tell you they took it gracefully. They didn't. First came the blame game. Donna swore it was Marie's idea. Marie claimed Donna pushed her into it. Then came the sympathy tour, sad little social media posts about being unfairly targeted and community politics gone wrong. But the comments section? Brutal. Screenshots of the security footage. Memes of propane tanks. Someone even photoshopped a hazmat worker into their Christmas card from last year. And karma wasn't done yet. When their insurance company found out about the fraud angle, they not only refused to help, they dropped them as clients. A local paper ran a small piece about HOA officials accused in gas leak hoax, complete with an awkward photo of the sisters trying to hide behind a potted plant outside the courthouse. By the time the first court date rolled around, the Karens had that haunted, over-caffeinated look people get when they're one bad day away from snapping. I saw them in the hallway, whispering furiously while their attorney flipped through a stack of papers, shaking his head. No settlement deal was coming. They were going to trial. That night, I walked past the park. The bouncy houses weren't there, the food trucks weren't lined up, but the air was clean and calm. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel that tight, frustrated knot in my chest. Justice wasn't just coming, it was already here. In legal paperwork and court dates and fines they'd never escape. It's funny. They thought shutting down one little charity event would prove they had power. Instead, all they proved was that no one, not even self-appointed HOA royalty, is above the law when fraud and lawsuits are involved. If you love seeing HOA Karens get exactly what they deserve, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel because the next lawsuit story I've got will make this one look like a picnic. You ever had that moment where you think, this can't actually be happening? Well, buckle up. 3 days ago, the Karen sisters, those infamous HOA tyrants everyone in the neighborhood whispered about, decided to pull the ultimate power move. Literally, they cut the power to my medical garage. Can you imagine? A garage filled with life-saving equipment, running off electricity 24/7, and suddenly, everything goes dark. And no, they didn't know I'm the chief of emergency operations for the county. Funny how karma has its way. Huh? Let me catch my breath for a second because this whole mess still has me shaking. Why would anyone be so cruel? So cold? So recklessly self-righteous? It's like they wanted to see what chaos looked like firsthand. And boy, did they get more than they bargained for. It all started on a bright Monday morning. The kind of morning where the sun feels sharp but warm, birds chirping a bit too cheerfully, and the faint hum of the neighborhood waking up. I was down in my garage, surrounded by humming machines, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, emergency battery backups, every piece of equipment crucial to patients relying on me. I'm not just any garage tinkerer. This is a mini medical hub I've built over the years, helping folks who can't always get quick hospital access. But today, all of it went dead. A sudden thump-thump in my chest as the lights flickered once, twice, and then just gave out. No, I muttered, scrambling for my phone, but the whole block was dark. The power was completely out, and not a single device in my garage was humming anymore. I dashed outside to check the meter. That's when I saw it bright orange tape wrapped around the main power line with a big red sticker. Power disabled, HOA order. What? Who would do this? My blood boiled as I looked up the street. There they were, the infamous Karen sisters, Judy and Linda, standing on their porch, arms crossed, faces set like stone. They were the kind of people who thought rules were weapons, and kindness was a weakness. I wanted to yell, "Are you serious? Do you even know what you're messing with?" But I bit back. I needed facts, not rage. Turns out, the sisters had filed a formal complaint weeks ago, claiming my garage was a hazard, unauthorized commercial operation, and threatening neighborhood aesthetics. Typical Karen nonsense, but this time, they'd taken it way too far, cutting the power without any notice or warning. I still remember the cold, mechanical click of the breaker when the power went off, like the sound of a guillotine falling on months of hard work and, frankly, people's lives. And here's the twist. What they didn't, as I stared back at them, the irony hit me like a punch. I mean, how's that for karma? These Karens thought they were crushing me, but they just lit a fire I wasn't about to let die. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of the tape with the sticker, then headed straight to the county office. No way was I letting some HOA tyrants sabotage life-saving work. The office was buzzing when I walked in, and I almost laughed at the timing. The moment I laid the photo down on the desk, everyone's heads snapped up. "What in the world?" a clerk gasped. "Who would do this?" I gave them the lowdown, the Karens, the complaint, the power cut. By the end of it, the county attorney was on the phone drafting emergency injunctions to restore power immediately. But wait, there's more. The sisters didn't just stop there. Later that afternoon, I got a call from my neighbor, Jenna, frantic and almost in tears. She said the Karens had started knocking on doors, warning everyone about dangerous activities in my garage and threatening to call the police if anyone supported me. Are you kidding me? I could hear the faint sound of her kids crying in the background. What kind of monster weaponizes neighbors against a guy who's literally saving lives? I sighed heavily. This wasn't just about power anymore. It was about control, about fear, about the way Karen types manipulate social pressure like some twisted chess game. And you better believe I was ready to play. That night, as I sat in my dark house with only the faint glow of my phone, I started piecing together the bigger picture. The sisters had been pushing this agenda for months, sneaking complaints and setting traps. They hated that my garage wasn't just a personal workshop but a beacon for the community, a place where folks could come when hospitals were full or ambulance response times were slow. Imagine the audacity. How dare they try to erase a lifeline just because it doesn't fit their picture of suburban perfection? It's like they wanted people to suffer because it made their precious neighborhood cleaner. I shook my head in disbelief. And here's the kicker: the very next morning, just as I was prepping to fight back officially, the Karens were dealt their own surprise blow. The county's emergency power inspector arrived, yours truly, to conduct a thorough review. When I showed up at their front door, clipboard in hand, the look on their faces was priceless. The same faces that had cut my power looked like they'd swallowed a lemon whole. I calmly explained that not only was my garage operating completely within legal bounds, but it was also registered as an emergency response unit. The irony? I'm literally in charge of coordinating emergency power protocols across the county. So, when they cut my power, they also broke county emergency codes. Oops. Linda tried to argue. We didn't know all that. We just want what's best for our community. Oh, come on. The best for the community? That's just their sanitized fantasy, excluding anyone or anything that doesn't fit their narrow definition. Judy's mouth tightened. You could hear the tension crackle in the air like static electricity. The county inspector handed them a formal violation notice for unauthorized interference with emergency infrastructure. Suddenly, it wasn't me being the problem, Anna Marie, it was them. Karma? You bet. But the story gets better. That afternoon, a neighbor called me in a panic. Her elderly father's oxygen machine had stopped working because of the blackout. Can you feel my heart stop? It was moments like these that made the sister's cruelty painfully real. I rushed to her house with my emergency generator and battery backups. The relief on that woman's face was something I'll never forget. Later that evening, I saw the Karens outside their house, arguing loudly with each other. Their perfect little act had shattered. Rumors spread fast. People were rallying behind me, and the HOA board was suddenly getting calls from the county about fines, violations, and lawsuits. The Karen sisters had backed themselves into a corner. But here's the final twist. About 2 days later, the HOA's power supplier notified them that they'd be facing hefty fines for tampering with the power grid, plus a full investigation into the unauthorized outage. The sisters' little vendetta was now a full-blown legal nightmare. They were scrambling to patch things up, but the damage was done. The neighborhood knew exactly what kind of people they were dealing with. And me? I got a standing ovation at the next county emergency meeting, with officials praising my quick response and dedication. The garage, fully powered back up, running smoother than ever, and now with extra security measures to prevent any future sabotage. Take that, Karens. But the Karens weren't finished yet. Oh no, they doubled down. When the fines and violations started rolling in, Judy and Linda launched a lawsuit against me. Can you believe that? A lawsuit claiming I was disturbing the peace and operating an illegal business, as if running a medical emergency hub to help neighbors was some criminal enterprise. Really? This just shows how far people will sink when blinded by spite. The community, however, saw right through their charade. More neighbors came forward, telling stories of how my garage had saved their lives, or those of their loved ones during power outages and medical emergencies. People started showing up at HOA meetings, demanding accountability and transparency. The Karens found themselves isolated, their once iron grip loosening with every testimony and every angry glance. The lawsuit dragged on, but with each hearing, the Karens' arguments grew weaker. Evidence piled up. Permits, emergency operation certifications, countless grateful neighbors, and even recordings of the sisters admitting their vendetta against me simply because I ruined the neighborhood's image. The judge wasn't buying it. Then, a beautiful moment of poetic justice during one of the court sessions. A sudden power outage hit the courthouse. Guess who stepped up? Me. Using my portable medical equipment and emergency power setup, I helped keep the building's critical systems running until backup power kicked in. That moment, it was electric literally and figuratively. The courtroom went silent, all eyes on me, the villain turned savior. By the time the verdict came down, the judge ruled decisively in my favor. The Karens were ordered to pay damages for unlawful power interference and defamation. Their lawsuit was dismissed and labeled a malicious attempt to harass. I could almost hear the collective gasp from the Karens when the judge's words hit the room. Their reign of terror was officially over. But more than that, it was a lesson to everyone who thinks they can bully their way through life at others' expense. Power isn't just about electricity, it's about the strength to do what's right, even when you're up against the loudest, most stubborn opponents. And I wasn't about to let a couple of Karens dim the light of a whole community. Looking back, I still get a little chill remembering the sound of silence when the power died in my garage. But now, that silence has been replaced by the hum of machines, the grateful chatter of neighbors, and the knowledge that justice, though slow, does come. So if you ever find yourself facing a Karen or any bully who thinks they can mess with your life, remember this story. Stand your ground. Fight smart. And maybe, just maybe, karma's got your back too. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you want to hear more stories about standing up to injustice, power struggles, and unexpected victories, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Because trust me, this lawsuit saga was only the beginning. You ever have one of those days where the air just feels heavy? Like the world's holding its breath, waiting for something ugly to happen? Yeah, that was me, standing in my driveway, coffee in hand, watching a pack of leather-vested bikers rumble toward my front gate. And I knew exactly who sent them. Karen, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, the woman who could turn a loose garbage can lid into a federal case. And now, apparently, she'd graduated from sending nasty emails to sending muscle. My wife, Jessica, had only been on her morning walk when they cut her off at the end of our cul-de-sac. I saw it from the porch. One of them actually revved his engine and leaned forward like he was trying to intimidate her. She froze for a split second, then kept walking, chin up, like the stubborn angel she is. "Hey!" I yelled, stepping forward. My voice cut through the sound of engines. One of the bikers, big guy, beard down to his chest, turned his head toward me. I could practically hear the smirk under his sunglasses. But what they didn't know, what Karen didn't know, was that I'm not the kind of man you send threats to. I'm not a victim. I'm Delta Force, retired, and my patience has limits. They peeled away before I reached them, circling back out toward the main road. Jessica made it up the driveway, cheeks flushed, hands trembling. They said she swallowed hard. They said if I didn't stop talking to the board about her fraud, there'd be consequences. I felt my jaw tighten. Fraud. The word tasted sour. Because she wasn't wrong. Karen had been doctoring invoices for months, forging signatures, rerouting HOA funds to her personal reimbursement account. And I had proof. The problem? She also had friends in low places. Friends who apparently liked motorcycles and intimidation. I took a slow breath, forcing myself not to sprint down the road after them right that second. Go inside. Lock the door. But, Jessica, my tone left no room for debate. When she was safe inside, I sat in my truck, engine idling, watching the road. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I also wasn't about to let someone think they could terrorize my wife without consequence. The next day, things got worse. I found a letter taped to our doorknob envelope, just folded paper in shaky handwriting. Drop the lawsuit or next time we won't just talk. I laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. Next time, huh? Oh, Karen, you really had no idea who you were messing with. That night, I started making calls. Old contacts. People from a past life most folks in this neighborhood couldn't even imagine. Men who'd operated in sand and shadow, who could dismantle a threat before breakfast and be home in time for dinner. The thing about intimidation, it only works if the other side is afraid. 3 days later, I caught them on camera, same bikers, loitering at the end of our street. They thought they were being subtle, leaning against their bikes, smoking, pretending not to look at our house. My security system caught every frame. I sent the footage to my attorney, along with copies of the forged HOA documents I'd been collecting for months. The lawsuit I'd filed against Karen for fraud and embezzlement had just gained a whole new angle. Harassment and conspiracy. Still, I wasn't done. See, intimidation's a two-way street. And I learned a long time ago that the fastest way to end a threat is to make it too costly for them to continue. The next time they showed up, I didn't confront them. I followed them. 2 miles down the highway, they pulled into a rundown bar with a neon skull over the door. I parked 2 blocks away, slipped inside through the back, and waited. My heart rate didn't spike, not after all the things I'd been through, but my mind was razor sharp. They sat in a corner booth, laughing, throwing back beers. I caught enough of their conversation to know they weren't just Karen's friends, they were being paid. Cash. And she was using HOA funds to do it. That was it. Game over. Within 48 hours, I had everything in place. My attorney filed a motion to expand the civil suit into a criminal complaint, and I handed over every shred of evidence to a federal investigator I'd served with overseas. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was interstate fraud and conspiracy to commit assault. And here's the thing about federal charges: they stick. The morning the agents moved in, I was drinking coffee on the porch, same as the day it started. Jessica sat beside me, still shaken but steadier now. We heard the engines before we saw them. For a moment I thought again, but this time it wasn't just motorcycles. It was black SUVs, unmarked but unmistakable. The bikers didn't stand a chance. One second they were rolling down our street, the next they were on the pavement, hands zip-tied behind their backs. Karen's shrill voice carried all the way from her porch as two agents walked her to a waiting vehicle. "You can't do this. I'm the president of the HOA. "Not anymore," one of the agents replied, voice flat. Jessica let out a slow, shaky laugh. "I can't believe it. It's actually over." But I knew it wasn't over, not for Karen. Not by a long shot. Federal time isn't like county jail. You don't just charm your way out of it. And as for me, I'd learned something important. Sometimes the best counterattack isn't the loudest one. It's the one they never see coming until the cuffs click shut. Turns out I was right, it wasn't over for Karen. 2 weeks after the arrests, I got a letter from her attorney. She was still trying to fight, claiming the bikers acted independently, and that she had no knowledge of their harassment. Cute. Except the bank records, text messages, and a little voice memo from one of the bikers himself told a different story. That biker Reed was smarter than the rest. Or maybe just more desperate. He took a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence and witness protection. And boy, did he sing. Every payment. Every order. Even the little detail about Karen forging a board member's signature to release HOA funds for security patrol. Forged. Fraud. Harassment. Embezzlement. It read like a federal prosecutor's wish list. Meanwhile, Jessica and I started sleeping through the night again. No more rumble of engines after dark. No more shadows at the end of the street. The neighborhood was quieter. 2 people were actually smiling at each other in the morning, as if a storm cloud had finally moved on. But Karen? She was a different story. Word got around that she tried one last stunt from county lockup before her transfer to federal prison. She had her cousin file a countersuit against me for emotional distress and character defamation. I almost laughed myself off the porch when I read it. We didn't even have to break a sweat on that one. The judge dismissed it in under 5 minutes, citing the ongoing federal case and the mountain of evidence against her. I swear, the sound of that gavel was better than any medal I'd ever earned. Her sentencing came 3 months later. I didn't attend, but I heard every detail from my attorney. The judge didn't mince words, calling her a manipulative, dangerous influence who had abused her position of authority for personal gain. 7 years. Federal time. No parole. When Jessica and I got the news, we sat out on the porch, watching the sun dip low over the rooftops. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "It's really over now." I took a long breath, the air sweeter than it had been in months. "Yeah," I said quietly, "and we didn't have to become them to win." That night, I filed one last motion closing the civil lawsuit. Not because I couldn't win more damages, but because sometimes the real victory is watching justice crush the people who thought they were untouchable. And to anyone listening to this, if you've got a Karen in your life who thinks they can bully, forge, and commit fraud without consequence, trust me, keep your head, keep your proof, and let the law do its work. Oh, and if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life justice like this, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel because the next lawsuit I tell you about is even crazier.